Salam Kwabaku Azuk to all my friends and followers here on Voice of Circassia. My name is Jetgwe Batzer, and today's episode, in collaboration with the Khabza page, we're going to be talking about a week after since the fall of the Assad regime and the impact it's had on the Circassian community, as well as questions, concerns, and the entire prospect of what's happened since then. Now, the Assad regime has been in power for over 54 years and has fought a brutal civil war for 14 years since, with millions dead and countless displaced. Since the end of this conflict, however, a lot of fears that initially were brought about, such as sectarian violence or revenge or just the collapse of state institutions, were actually prevented because Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, members of the former Syrian regime, and the Southern Front in Dara all got together to create a relatively smooth transition of power. Despite some initial tensions and some issues, for the most part, Syrian Christians, Druze, Circassians, and Alawites have all had pledges of peace and respect made to them by members of the Syrian opposition. A new government is being formed. People are now able to speak their opinions freely. And, despite the recent attacks by Israel and so much other sadness and heartache going on, for the first time ever, Syrian people, regardless from both sides, have finally come together and said, it's time to create a new path forward together. And for the Circassian community specifically, this is a message that resonates heavily because for the first time ever, there's now a chance for them to really be free. But before we get into that, we're going to talk about some of the crimes, some of the concerns, as well as a lot of questions for the future and plans from the Circassian community. To start things off, the Circassian community was devastated when evidence of the Saydnaya prison finally came out, and it was discovered and reported that hundreds, if not more, Circassian, Chechen, Ossetian, Dagestani, countless people from the Caucasus, as well as thousands more of innocent Syrians of all religions and backgrounds, were found to have been arrested, detained, killed, and tortured, many of them for over 40 years since the founding of this regime. For the Circassians specifically, there were evidence and reports of people who were thought to be dead for over 30 years turning out to be alive, as well as people such as young teenagers who have been missing for 10 years onwards, found to have been murdered before they even reached their 18th birthday. This brutality, this barbarity that has been discovered that really traumatized the Circassian community has, of course, created a lot of sadness and heartache, and every day we're finding more and more people who have either been tortured, killed, or released. But at the same time, for the first time ever, it's offering a sense of closure for all of the Circassians and Caucasian members of the community out there. There's been over 300 reported lists of people's documentation being released, more young information coming out, but I think the most important thing that really affected us in a very profound way was just hearing how teenagers such as young Nadil Zakaria from the Ghish family was killed. And in addition to what's happening from Saydnaya and people discovering what's going on, of course the state of Israel has added its interests in the mix, and now Circassians are also concerned about the safety from there. It's not even about clashes between the opposition or former regime that people are worried about, but it's really what Israel plans to do next. As you can see here, Israel has launched an aggressive land campaign, launching over 500 missile strikes, sending and deploying its forces further into the Golan Heights, as well as just enforcing its authority on Syrian sovereign territory. And for the Circassians especially, this is a very sensitive issue. You see, in 1967, Israel launched a brutal and ruthless campaign to take over the Golan Heights, and with full evidence from Eshkol, Israeli, British, Arab, countless historians, we have verified and found that the Israelis planned to kill and kick out the Circassians back then and there. We have elders still alive who can narrate and talk about this, but considering that we still have 2 Circassian villages left in the Golan Heights, such as Birajam and Bareka, the concerns of the community are really huge. And considering what Israel is currently doing in the operations going on in Gaza, as well as even the West Bank with countless civilians being killed, there is genuine evidence for Circassians to be concerned that they may be the next target from the Israeli war machine's interest as it expands into the region. And for that, I really hope that the Circassians of Kafr Kama and Rihaniya could really provide assistance as necessary to ensure the safety and stability of our compatriots. Yet even though with all those two concerns I listed, there is a lot of hope coming out from the Syrian Circassian youth community. A lot of Syrian Circassians can express their opinions freely for the first time. People are now having hope and promise for the future. People want to go back and help rebuild. You have to remember there are over 100,000 Syrian Circassians worldwide, and with work done such as the Charity Association of the Circassian community in Damascus and elsewhere, they've now actually began taking steps and become a part of the celebration to come. Some of the biggest programs and projects that have been enacted is they've been communicating with other castas such as the CBA and communities in Turkey and the homeland, and they've also made a plan to, first of all, make sure that the martyrs are given attention, love, and respect, community rebuilding is done, national unity, and the interests of all Circassians concerned. With everything going on, despite all the tragedy that Circassians have gone through, here's to them, and we wish them all the best hope and happiness for the future.